So it's been 6 months since I sold off my old collection, my old retro video game collection, which was worth roughly around $87,000. And when I sold it, I did it because of the move that I made. I pretty much moved to the other side of the country, the absolute opposite side of the country. And just logistically and with timing and everything, it just didn't make sense for me to move it. It was just going to be too much of a hassle. There was too much going on. I didn't have the time. I couldn't plan it out. And so I opted to sell it. And when I sold it, there was a common theme that a lot of the games that I had in my old collection, I wouldn't be able to get back, that it would be very difficult for me to find those games. And that if I did find those games, they would probably be even more expensive to reacquire them into my collection. And so I wanted to give you guys a 6-month update with where I'm at with my collection, just to kind of let you know how it's been going, how I've been sourcing some of these games, and ultimately how much it's cost me. You know, has it actually cost me more to rebuild my collection than it did when I built it the first time? And just what are some of the differences, right, with, you know, how I'm building it now and how I built a good chunk of it before. Now, I do just want to say that fundamentally, the way I'm collecting today is drastically different from how I collected pretty much from 2020 to roughly around 2023. As most of you know, there was very little we could do in terms of going outside and like going into stores, especially in like 2020 and 2021. It's very difficult to go outside. So a lot of the sourcing at that time came from eBay. Now, on the good side, you know, especially at the very beginning of 2020, prices had not yet exploded. They weren't quite what they were. Like, the prices hadn't really peaked until around 2021. Like, 2021 was when things really blew up. But in 2020, you were still able to find games on the rise. Like, literally, if you looked at a game on Monday, by Wednesday, that game was probably $30 more expensive, $40 more expensive, just depending on the game. And so it made it difficult because you were pretty much at the mercy of eBay. You really couldn't like go out many places. Not to say that there weren't people who weren't going outside, but legally you couldn't really go outside, and you know, you had to maintain distance and 6 feet and all that jazz. Whereas today, you can go back to some of the older ways of collecting: yard sales, pawn shops, game stores, things of that nature. And on top of that, you have a major retailer like GameStop that's actually dedicated a portion of their business to like retro video games. So the landscape changed for about 3 years, and then it changed again around 2024, and we saw a change there. Now, with the change in 2024 in terms of being able to go outside, obviously there was a change in pricing as well. Pricing did start to dip again on retro games for certain games, not all games. Some games have actually continued to go up, and a lot of games have actually gone down. And so you're going to see how this kind of has balanced out for me in terms of collecting. Now, the games that I'm going to show you here are games that are probably some of the more rare games in my collection. They're definitely not the rarest games or the most expensive games in my collection, but I'm showing these games because these are the games that are typically more difficult to source. These are the games that you're typically gonna have to go to eBay for, or maybe you're gonna have to go to like a mom and pop shop for and hope that they have it there. So having said all that, let's kind of first take a look. I'm gonna show you 5 games that I had in my first collection, that I had in my previous collection, and then I'm gonna show you 5 games that are new, like meaning these are games that I did not have in my old collection and they're just new to me now. So getting things started, we have obviously Lightning Force on the Sega Genesis. This was an eBay pickup. I got this for a little under price charting value for what this game goes for. I can't remember what that price is now, but at the time, I really wanted to get my hands on an original copy of Lightning Force because I wanted to play it. And my options were I could get a Sega Genesis Mini 2 and spend over $200 on that, or I can just get the genuine artifact and play it on an actual Sega Genesis. And obviously this is going to be better, less input lag, and so I opted for this copy. So went ahead and snagged it. It is complete in box. It does have the hang tab. It's in good condition, but I do know that I got this for under price charting value, not by much, maybe about 10-15 bucks, but still it was under price charting. I couldn't tell you right now whether Lightning Force has gone up or down. I want to say that it's gone down a little bit, maybe, but you guys can let me know in the comments. The next game is Spike Out Battle Street. Now, Spike Out Battle Street, this was a mom and pop store pickup. So there are a good number of retro video game stores around me here in Southern California. And I did go ahead and get this one from a mom and pop game store. I did a trade for this, and I'm pretty sure that when I traded for this, this was like around 210 maybe, I think was where I was at on this, maybe either 200 or 210. Spike Out Battle Street, I'm pretty sure price charged for somewhere around 225, maybe 230. I'm sure some folks are trying to pull 240 for it. I don't think they'll get that. But Spike Out Battle Street was definitely a game that I missed in my old collection. And the second I saw this game, especially in person, I knew I needed to grab it. Just because this, again, is another hard one to find in the wild. And I'm really trying to avoid eBay as much as I can. So for 6th generation games, I'll typically try to hold out to see if I can find them in the wild. But anything like 5th generation or older, especially if it's rare, I know 9 times out of 10 I'm gonna have to turn to eBay. This is a great 3D beat 'em up game, and this was one that I added back to the collection as well. God Hand, so this was back to eBay. So back to eBay on this one, was able to find someone who was able to do price charting, the actual price charting value. Actually, no, they gave this to me for $20 under price charting. I think this game price charts, or at the time that I got it, it was somewhere between $235 and $240. I was able to get it for $220. And so I went ahead and did that online just because the odds of me finding this in the wild for anything less than price charting is extremely low. Even if I try to get this game from GameStop, GameStop is still going to try to beat me in the head for around 130, maybe to 160 for this game, because GameStop has caught up to the value on most of these games. And so this is probably not one that I would try to order on their website, just because I know it'd probably come incomplete and probably in rough shape. So this was one that I did eBay. Also this game has gone up a lot. When I originally added this game to my collection about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, this game was around 100 to 120 bucks. This game now hovers, like I said, anywhere from like 245. I've seen this go all the way up to 300. This is one that's kind of jumped up. Don't want to pay 300 for sure, but it is a very good game. Again, I like beat 'em up games, both 2D and 3D. This is a classic Capcom 3D beat 'em up, definitely one worth checking out if you've never checked it out. God Hand is an awesome game, and so this is one that I added back to the collection for sure. Then we have Popful Mail. So Popful Mail was a game that I got on a trade. I actually had this in my original collection. I picked this up maybe about a year or two before selling my collection. And price charting values on this game at that time was roughly somewhere around $550. And although I didn't pay for the game at that time, I traded the trades that I made, I traded games for it. I traded a lot of like sought after but somewhat common games for like Nintendo consoles, so like Wii games, GameCube games, DS games, Super Nintendo games, like a lot of the common stuff, so like Metroid, Kirby games, Mario games, and I traded to someone who resells. So for them, it was a win because it's easier for them to sell those Mario games than to try to find a buyer for Popful Mail. Now, in this case, when I got this game back, I actually got this game buying a lot of games. So I bought an entire Sega CD collection. And at the time of picking this game up, I'm pretty sure I got this for around 70% of the price charting value. So it was actually less than what I paid for my original copy of Popful Mail. And it's funny because Popful Mail was one of the games that a lot of people said I wouldn't be able to find again, or that I'd pay more for. And I actually paid 30% less than what I originally paid for my original copy of Popful Mail. And this copy is actually in better condition, and a lot better condition. So this was definitely an upgrade and a pleasant surprise for me. So I was glad to add this one back. And again, that was a collection purchase. And then the last game that I'll show you, and again, I've added multiple games back to my collection that was in my original, but I'm just showing you these just to kind of give you an idea. I wanted to spread it out across like different consoles and stuff, so you could kind of see. But Sega Saturn is notoriously difficult to collect for, especially finding games in good condition. But again, this was another mom and pop shop pickup, and I got another really good deal on this. I actually bought this the same time that I picked up a Sega Saturn. I got the Sega Saturn complete in box, and I got this copy of Guardian Heroes along with it. Both were in really great shape. Two games that I was really glad to add, or two pieces that I was glad to add back to the collection. Mom and pop shop pickup, totally stoked with it. got it for underpriced charting, so a win all the way around. And so this kind of stack of games that you're seeing here, games that I've added to the collection, overall, I could honestly say that I've paid less this time around adding these games back to my collection than I did originally. And I don't think it's just because of the fact that game prices are going down. I think that does have something to do with it. But in a lot of cases, with at least 2 of these games, if not 3, the price of these games have actually gone up, yet I was able to get them at a better deal. And that's just because I've been able to buy more in bulk. So that's this stack of games. Now we're gonna get into some of the games that I've added to the collection that I did not have in my original collection. We'll start off with Sunset Riders, which technically I did have Sunset Riders in my original collection. I did have it on the Super Nintendo. However, I never had it complete in box and in this condition. This is probably like an 8.5 out of 10 condition copy, maybe 9 for Sunset Riders. The box is in actually really great shape. The game is in immaculate shape. It's almost brand new, really. It really, all it needs is the plastic seal, and this thing could be, you know, it'd be great. So I got this. I bought a collection of games, a small collection of games, and this came with it. I got this for underpriced charting again. Not by much though, but this has actually gone up. I've been noticing that the value of this game, complete in box, has gone up. And at the time that I purchased this, I did not see a lot of complete in box copies of Sunset Riders that had everything, like all the inserts and everything. This has all the inserts. I didn't really see a lot of copies of that on eBay. And the ones that I did see on eBay, they were really asking some really wild prices. Like I was seeing like $550, stuff like that. I think this price charged for like $350, maybe $4. So like I said, I got it for underpriced charting, got a pretty good deal on it. I'm not mad at it at all. And this was a very cool piece to add into the collection. Next up, we have another game that I did not have in my old collection, Dragon Force. Now, this was a game that I was interested in looking into back when I had my old Sega Saturn collection. I just never really found a copy that was within range of me being able to pick up. This I picked up in a bundle, so I got this as part of a collection purchase. 25% of the price charting for this one, so was stoked on that. Again, cheaper than I would have probably paid for it if I would have added it in my original collection. So this was a really cool and unique piece to add to my collection, and condition is top tier. 9 out of 10 on the condition on this. Manual, disc, everything is in really great shape. Next up, Kickmaster. So this, oh, sorry. Did I say how I got these? I think I said how I got the Sunset Riders. So Sunset Riders was actually a Facebook Marketplace deal. This was a collection purchase. And then we have Kickmaster, which I think this is the first GameStop pickup out of all these games so far. But Kickmaster was actually a GameStop pickup. So I would say within my second month of being out here on the West Coast, I went to like one of the first GameStops I went to. They opened the drawer and had literally like maybe like the top 20 rarest NES games of all time. I mean, Bucky O'Hare, Gun Knack, I mean, you name it. They had games that I didn't even think about. And what's funny is that I purchased these games in like 3 separate waves. I actually passed on Kickmaster because I didn't realize how cool it was. And then I looked up some gameplay footage, and this is a sick side-scrolling, kind of like beat 'em up type of game. I mean, you can only really kick, but this game is sick, and the graphics are actually really good on this one. This is a really dope game. Almost passed on it. Glad that I didn't. I'm glad I went back and got it, because this one's actually pretty expensive too. I think this is like $150 to $160 game. I was actually able to get my hands on it for roughly around 90, 95. So that was a really good deal for me personally. I've never seen this game in the wild, and this was one that I did not have in my original collection. So I was really glad to have found this and added this in. This was a really sick pickup. GameStop on top of that. Next up, we have Gunhead. So this was a Facebook Marketplace deal. There's all kinds of people selling stuff around me, which is really great. I gotta be honest, the one thing I gotta give Southern California for is that there's somewhat of a good amount of variety. However, a lot of it is centered into Nintendo and PlayStation. Not a lot of Sega stuff. But every once in a while, you'll see like off-the-wall types of games and consoles. So like you'll run into a TurboGrafx, or you'll see someone selling a Virtual Boy. I was actually able to run into someone who had a PC Engine that they were selling. It was the PC Engine and PC CD-ROM combo, which I got for a killer deal. I want to say I got the console and Gunhead for like 120 bucks or something like that. And Gunhead on its own for the PC Engine is like $100 game or so, somewhere between like 95 and 110. So this was a really killer deal. It's a really killer deal. Gunhead is actually a really cool shoot 'em up, a really interesting shoot 'em up. I'm a big fan of shoot 'em ups. They're a little bit more difficult to collect out here, just because I don't see them as much. So if for me to get certain shoot 'em ups, I have to like either eBay them or go to like a mom and pop shop. I don't really see a lot of shoot 'em ups like that. But this was one that I saw on Facebook Marketplace, and I got the PC Engine just for this game. So I have added other PC Engine games since picking up Gunhead, but this was actually a really cool one. I'm glad I added it. Killer deal on it. Killer deal between the console and the game. Really great deal. And I'd never had this in my collection before, so this is definitely an interesting piece to add. And then last but not least, this is a game that I never would have figured that I would have had in my collection at all. But Pokemon Heart Gold, and yes, I have it in this like protective acrylic case, just because this case I actually got in a collection buyout. I think there was another Pokemon game that was in this case, but I took that Pokemon game out and decided to put this Heart Gold in because I think this was in better condition. Oh yeah, Soul Silver. So Soul Silver used to be in this case, but I took Soul Silver out because that copy of Soul Silver is not as in good condition as Heart Gold. And plus I think Heart Gold's a little bit more valuable. I think Heart Gold, complete in box with the Poke Walker, somewhere around like $550 or something, maybe $500, I don't know. But I picked this up as part of a trade. So I took a bunch of doubles that I had and just games that I didn't really want as part of a purge, and I took it to a mom and pop shop hoping to be able to pick up Genesis games. But when I got there, a lot of the Genesis games that I was hoping to get were gone. And so there weren't really like a lot of other games that I saw that were just worth it to me. And so I just, instead of buying, trading for a bunch of other games that were just going to sit on the shelf and take up space, I decided to just dump the lion's share of the trade-in and pick up Heart Gold. Heart Gold, like the trade-ins covered the total cost of Heart Gold, and I think I picked up a couple other games, maybe like a Game Boy game or something like that. But again, one that I did not have in my old collection, one that I wasn't expecting to be able to get or add to my collection. It is what it is. It is what it is. Overall, what can I say about rebuilding the collection in 2026 is that rebuilding a retro game collection, I think in 2026 is easier and more difficult at the same time. I think it definitely requires a lot more legwork. I think it requires a lot more consistency than it did back in like 2020, 2021. I feel like you ran into things a lot easier back then, and you don't as much now. I know a lot of people feel like, more and more people are selling their collections and they're trying to get rid of stuff, whether it be because of financial hardships or whatever the case may be. But just as there are a lot of people selling their collections, there are a lot of people buying there's a lot more people buying video games and a lot more people that are starting to collect even here and now in 2026. You got a lot of people who are getting into video game collecting because they may not necessarily want to dive into the madness of Pokemon collecting. Maybe they don't want to deal with the cards. There's still a strong level of nostalgia that a lot of people have, especially for Gen 6 games. Like there's a lot of nostalgia for PS2 right now. A lot of nostalgia for like Xbox. GameCube has been hot for a long time, but PS2 has been big. And I don't think we've quite hit the sweet spot for like Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 yet. A lot of people have been pretty premature in declaring, the PS3 or the Xbox 360 the next hot thing, and those two consoles just have not taken off like that yet. Just because they're 7th gen, yes, and I guess by GameStop standards they're considered retro, but they're not. They might be retro, but they're not nostalgic. At least not yet. They haven't achieved that level of nostalgia that gives people that emotional tie and causes people to have that emotional reaction. Like when you see gray cartridge, if you look in a drawer and see a gray cartridge, or if you're in a yard sale and you see a gray cartridge, it almost doesn't matter what the game is. As soon as you see that gray cartridge, it immediately kicks off some type of like nostalgic, like knee-jerk reaction, and you're like, you need to at least see what that game is. You're like, man, I see a gray cartridge, I need to at least see what it is. I don't think people have that type of reaction to Xbox 360 and PS3 games yet. Like if you see a 360 game off in the distance, you're not like feeling the urge, I feel like, to like go and see what it is. Just because 360 games and PS3 games are still like heavily prevalent out in the wild these days. You know, most yard sales will have 360 and PS3 nine times out of 10, or Xbox One. That's really what you're gonna see. But like the cardboard, you know, when you see cardboard, when you see long box games, when you see PS2, you know, really anything Gen 6 or older, that's really the sweet spot, and that's what really perks up a lot of people's attention. And so when it comes to collecting for this stuff, yeah, I think the competition is definitely there. There's still content being made. Obviously, I'm making content around it now, but I can honestly say after about 5 to 6 months of collecting, I'm nearly back to half of my collection value for my original collection, roughly half or so. So, and keep in mind that's not because I've spent that much. I've just been very lucky being able to run into people who are selling their entire collection, just being at the right place at the right time. One example is, you know, that N64 collection that I picked up, which that collection alone was probably around like $5,000 to $6,000. So, you know, and I spent $550 on it. So I've just been having a lot of luck like that out here. Not all, you know, not everything's, you know, that easy. I'm not that lucky every day, but the consistency has definitely helped me pick back up on the collection. The one thing that I will say is I feel like my collection this time around is a lot more RPG heavy, and I'm not a huge RPG guy. I'm definitely more of a shoot 'em up guy. So I think during the second half of the year, I need to try to figure out how I can flip some of these games into like shoot 'em up and run and gun shooter games and beat 'em up games. Like I would love to convert something like a Pokemon Heart Gold into like Hyper Duel or you know, Blood Will Tell or something like that. So I'm definitely open to trade Heart Gold for a game like that. If you've got a copy of Blood Will Tell, I'll definitely get rid of this and give you that for Blood Will Tell. You know, I'm not married to Pokemon games or anything like that, but it's just kind of like where the situation has led me to. So I still think you can collect. I think you can build a retro collection in 2026. You just gotta be tenacious. You have to go after it. You have to be consistent. I have not hit yard sales as much as I would like to. I know that's probably an untapped gold mine for me. I just haven't, maybe I just don't have the discipline to get up early and like, you know, drive around to a lot of yard sales. That's the one thing about me that hasn't changed really when it comes to collecting, and I'll end off with this, is I sink my time into it, but very strategically. I fit collecting into the things that I'm already doing that are non-video game collecting related. I don't dedicate entire mornings to game hunting or entire days to game hunting. I do not do that. On average, I would probably say that I dedicate maybe 3 hours a week total to game hunting. That's how little time I spend sourcing games. And that's not just like eBay, or no, sorry, that's not just like going out in the wild. That's everything. I probably spend 3 to 5 hours per week between GameStop runs, going on GameStop's website, eBay, you know, and everything in between. Maybe 5 hours max for the week, you know, maybe 20 hours for the month total. I do not invest a lot of time into this because the one thing that hasn't changed is definitely my time is worth a lot more for me. And that's why for some games, I would be willing to just ante up an extra $30 to get my time back, as opposed to like running around and around and around and around trying to find a game that, you know, I'd probably have to spend months trying to locate. That hasn't changed. You know, I still, you know, I'm very cautious about how much time I invest. So, but let me know what you guys have picked up. Let me know what you think about some of the newer games that have been added in. Let me know what you think about some of the older games I was able to add back. Where are you at with your collecting journey? Let me know. I'm interested to hear. I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.